Hello, my fellow Whovians, and welcome to my latest Doctor Who review, where today I review Doctor Who The Power of Three, starring Matt Smith as the 11th Doctor. This is the 229th Doctor Who story, and it was written by Chris Chibnall, who's the current Doctor Who showrunner. Again, not for much longer. So, The Power of Three. This is also Amy and Rory's penultimate Doctor Who story. They will leave the show in the next story, The Angels Take Manhattan. But before that, on to the Power of Three. There have been many ways to invade the Earth, and the 11th Doctor has seen them all, or so he has always thought. And then the human race wakes up one morning and discovers the world has been overrun by small cubes, which then proceed to do nothing. A plan is afoot. Humanity is endangered. But by what? And how? And above all, when? Thus begins the year of the slow invasion. So, The Power of Three. This is a pretty good Doctor Who story. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good one. I don't think it's fantastic. I think it's a bit more of a slow burner story than some of the stories. I mean, it's only one part, thankfully, so it's not like a two-part story that's dragged out, but it definitely feels like a different sort of format. It's like almost flipping the formula a little bit, because this time the Doctor has now integrated into Amy and Rory's life, and we kind of told the story through their eyes rather than them travelling with the Doctor. There's a couple of moments where they do travel with him, but this is mainly focused on Amy and Rory, and the episode draws heavily on the fact that it is coming to the end for Amy and Rory, that they are having to choose between their two lives. And for them, it's about the struggle of which life to choose, the normal life or the life with the Doctor that they've always been living for the past few years. And they're trying to juggle both lives. And it's really interesting to see them finally make the choice in the end to stay with the Doctor. And of course, we'll see how it all pans out in the next story. It's also nice to see the return of Brian Williams as well. He was in Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, so it's nice to see him come back. Even though he is kind of pointless in the story, he doesn't really add much to the overall story, but it's nice to see him there because he is charming. And I really like the character drama of this one. Like I've already mentioned about Amy and Rory, there's also a scene where Amy and the Doctor are talking by the river, and he's like, "You're going to stop, aren't you? Soon you're going to stop travelling with me." And I understand, the Doctor's trying to come to terms with eventually them deciding they don't want to do this anymore. And Amy's like, "Well, we don't know. I mean, we're considering it, but we're not really sure." And there's a lovely emotional moment there with Matt Smith and Karen Gillan. I thought they acted that really well. And the Doctor is he's trying to prolong it as much as he can. He's clinging on to them for as long as he can. And that's when he kind of decides to stay on Earth and watch the cubes. But mainly he's staying because of them. He doesn't want to give them up. And there's that constant tension in this one of, what will Amy and Rory do? What will they decide to do? And will the Doctor be able to let them go? Well, tune into the next story to find out. The story itself is it's not bad. I mean, the cubes are interesting. I mean, they don't seem to do that much for the first half of the story, and then they suddenly open up, and then they start counting down, and then we discover that the cubes open up and are actually killing people, or sending people into cardiac arrest, and then the story culminates on board the Shakri ship. And I have to admit, the third act of this story is where it kind of falls apart. I do feel like they kind of rushed the ending a little bit. Like, the confrontation with the Shakri is fine, but it's only 5 minutes long. Literally, the actor Stephen Burkoff is in it. He plays the interface of the Shakri, but he doesn't get anything to do. I honestly thought that was a big letdown. The climax of this story was just so slapdash thrown on at the end. That's I don't know. It just didn't. It felt like an anti-climax, to be honest. And all the Doctor really had to do was buzz his screwdriver, and that was it. It was over. Also, we get Gemma Redgrave, who plays Kate Stewart. Yes, the daughter of Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. And I mean, her role is quite small in the story, but she's good. I mean, it's nice to see her in it, and it's a nice way to kind of keep the legacy of the Brigadier alive. Obviously, because Nicholas Courtney, by this point, would have passed away, so he wouldn't have been able to be in this story, sadly. And even if he was, he probably would have been in ill health. But, nevertheless, this is a nice way to kind of keep his memory alive and everything. And she gives the Doctor a kiss at the end and says, "You really are as remarkable as Dad said." And that was nice. I really enjoyed that. The humour's quite good. It's kind of nice to see the Doctor trying to do ordinary things, like he's like cutting the grass and he's hoovering Amy and Roy's house. He's playing football again. And he's painting their fence. And he's like, "How long was I gone?" "About an hour." Like the Doctor can never do human ordinary life. He finds it just tedious and boring. He has to be busy. I just like seeing the dynamic change a bit in this episode. There's also quite a good scene where one of the Doctor's hearts actually stops, and Amy has to resuscitate him, and she conveniently finds a defibrillator in the hospital, and she manages to resuscitate him, which is quite a good scene. That's an interesting sequence. I mean, to some people, this story might be a bit slow because it is more of a character piece and it is more of a slow burner. It's a different sort of take on the formula. It's not them traveling with the Doctor. The Doctors come to them, and there's an invasion that's happening. It is a slow invasion, and I suppose some people will find the pace of it slow, but I didn't mind it because I was still interested in the characters, and the end of the story is nice when the Doctor, he does accept that if they wanted to leave and stop the travelling, he would understand, but Brian says, actually, it's you they can't give up, and I don't think they should. And it's sad because Brian obviously doesn't know at this point that this will be the last time he sees his son and his daughter-in-law. But it's still a lovely scene at the end where they go off into the TARDIS at the end, and Amy's narration happens, and she said, then we realise what cubed actually means, the power of 3. And the Doctor salutes Brian, and then they head off, and it's a nice moment there. But this is definitely an emotional story. There's certainly some interesting scenes. Like I said, that scene by the river is very sweet, and you know, it's nice that they are intentionally drawing in on the ending of Amy and Rory, and it is coming very soon, and it's been a long time coming, I think. And I do like the design of the Shakari ship, and I think the CG wide shot of the ship looks really, really good and impressive. It's just the third act is such a letdown. It's just so quick. It's just such an anticlimax. I wish that it was a bit better. But that being said, this is a fun, enjoyable story. It's a good romp, and it's a good story for the character moments, and there is some good humour. Like, there's also the sequence at the beginning where the soldiers enter the house and Rory's in his underpants, which is quite amusing. But yeah, so I'm going to give The Power of 3, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I think it's a decent story. I think it does a good job. I forgot to mention as well, Matt Smith does a really good job as the Doctor, and again, giving us slightly more of an emotional performance this time. So, that's it for my review of The Power of 3. What do you think of the story? Please comment down below, let me know, and stay tuned next time when I review Amy and Rory's final story, The Angels Take Manhattan. So until then, I'm Mr. TARDIS11. Thank you for watching. See ya. Bye for now.